what if you could stop guessing where your audience hangs out online and start showing up exactly where they already pay attention? That's what Rand Fishkin, co-founder and CEO of SparkToro, is here to help us do. Hi, I'm Park Howell, and welcome to the Business of Story. I am delighted that you're with us today. Now, you may know Rand from his days leading Moz, but now he's on a mission to democratize audience intelligence with a tool that bypasses the Google, Facebook duopoly. He reveals how SparkToro sheds light on your ideal customers' true interests, where they go, who they follow, and what actually drives their decisions without costing you a fortune in ads or third-party research. If you're tired of digital marketing guesswork and want to make your storytelling truly resonate, then stay tuned as we explore how to find your audience before you try to move them. Because knowing who you're talking to is half the storytelling battle. Hello, Rand. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Park. Good to be here.
And you're coming to one of my all-time favorite places, where I grew up, Seattle, Washington. And you mentioned it's spring there and beautiful the other day and rainy today, and that's just the way it goes in the Northwest.
For sure.
Did you grow up there?
I did, yeah. Actually, I've never lived anywhere else. When I was very, very little, my parents had an apartment in New York. Only spent a few summers out there before they sold it.
Yeah. So you made your life and your home there in Seattle. What a beautiful place to be. Yeah. But I appreciate you being with us today because it occurred to me in the 517 shows we've done here over the last 9 years when we are teaching people how to become better storytellers. One area we've never really focused on is your sweet spot, and that is, okay, I might be able to tell my story, but how do I know I'm telling it to the right audience? Where do I find my audience? And that's your specialty.
Yeah, that's right. So we built a whole company around this, SparkToro, because my co-founder Casey and I had this big frustration of how do you figure out whether landscaping professionals in California are on Pinterest or Reddit or LinkedIn, and what social accounts they follow, and what YouTube channels they listen to, what podcasts they're subscribing to, what websites they visit, what keywords they search for. All of that data was guesswork. And so we thought, hey, maybe there's a way with some clever math and some good programming and some good data sources to actually make that transparent and available to anybody. And you don't need to hire a market research firm and pay them hundreds of thousands of dollars to do inaccurate surveys. We can, people have on their profiles on the internet, they say what they are and who they are. They say what they care about. And then you can see their interactions. You see what they like, what they subscribe to, what they follow, what they link to, what they talk about. So we figured if you could index that data at scale, we would be able to provide an answer to this. And that's what SparkToro does.
Yeah. So before, in the past, I'm guessing you really, to get that kind of information, had to rely on Google and Facebook. I know you kind of talked about them as a duopoly that would get this, and your SparkToro kind of does an end run around that. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't know, Park, how long you've been doing digital marketing, but if you remember, like maybe 10, 15 years ago, you used to be able to log into, for example, your Facebook account, and it would show you a thing called Facebook Insights. And it would tell you about the people who visited your page and what other pages they visited, what else they liked and subscribed, demographic details about the audience that was liking your page and interacting with your content. LinkedIn used to do similar. LinkedIn still has a little bit of that. So you can see some details about which posts people like and who they are. Reddit used to have data about that. Twitter used to offer data about that. All of them, post-Cambridge Analytica scandal in 2016, almost all the social networks took that kind of data away. Google Analytics is similar. It's become a sort of a product for analytics experts, and has hidden a ton of the data that used to be available, including the keywords that send you traffic, right? Google took that away. Was that 2012, 13? So a lot of these kinds of pieces of information that used to be available are now hidden behind the scenes. And these tech monopolies are using that power to sell advertising. They're basically saying, hey, entrepreneurs out there, hey, businesses, if you want data or if you want to show your ads to the right audiences, you've got to pay us. You can't just do it yourself. There's no way to figure it out, and we're not going to help you figure it out. In fact, we want to make it harder so that you have to give us money. And I guess that makes sense for their bottom line, but I think it sucks, and I think it's a problem worth solving.
Well, and you've seen in the news lately where people are claiming Zuckerberg are coming after ad agencies and basically saying, you don't need them anymore. Just let Facebook do your thing for you because they control the kingdom of data. Yet you with SparkToro somehow are able to go in and scrape that. That's a horrible word.
Yeah,
harvest it maybe is better.
I kind of like scraping, right? I think that big tech companies scrape all day. All Google is a scraper. It just scrapes the internet. They call it crawling and indexing, but it's no different than scraping or stealing, right? Every AI company is just scraping the internet and stealing content. In fact, the big AI companies are indexing, scraping things that are private, things like books and magazines and even television shows transcripts that should be protected under copyright, but the AI companies have managed to sort of avoid that so far. And I think by donating the right amounts of money to the right members of the administration, they've been able to avoid scrutiny and be above the law, which really sucks. But I think this means that it's up to us, right? It's up to us founders and entrepreneurs to go figure out clever ways around this, because look, Facebook, Zuckerberg is not making a false claim. You can go to Facebook or Google and you can give them your advertising and marketing dollars, and they will put your ads in front of people who are likely to become customers. But I would say two things about that. One, a huge number of the people that they're going to put your ads in front of, that they're going to charge you money to reach, would have bought from you anyway. And they know that. And because those people would have bought from you anyway, it looks awesome in their data set, right? Like when they show you analytics and they say, oh, you had 500 customers last month, 410 of them came from Facebook ads, meaning Facebook showed your ad to them somewhere along their online journey. And that's because Facebook has such reach across the internet and knows where everyone goes before they buy. And they're able to show those ads. Would 390 of those 410 people have bought from you anyway? Yes, probably, right? Maybe Facebook is adding a marginal 20. Maybe it's worth it for the amount you're paying to get those marginal 20 new customers. But I don't know. I think for a ton of people, they turn off a bunch of their ads and they see performance stay very similar. That is pretty frustrating, but very few people are willing to test that.
Yeah.
The second thing, that I'd say about this is Facebook and Google's incentive park is to make 99.99 cents for every $1 that you make, right? So they're essentially trying to take all the margin out of everyone's business and force them to put that towards advertising. That's their whole business model, right? They're sort of an extractive entity in this way and make it harder for you to have a good margin on your business. And they sort of want every other company in the world to be barely surviving profitable while they are intensely profitable and growing their own. That's the way, that's the way that advertising giants like them operate. And so, look, if you want better margins, you need to be able to invest in brand marketing and organic marketing and content and social and email and SEO and all of these alternative channels that don't cost you 99 cents for every dollar you make.
No.
That's the key to building a business that's, not completely reliant on these tech giants and won't be put out of business when their ad prices go up.
Mm-hmm. What woke me up to it, you're right in the heart of it, and I'm kind of jumping in and out of digital marketing and really understanding the ins and outs. Bob Hoffman, I don't know if you follow him, the ad contrarian out of San Francisco.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of him, yeah.
One of the best emails out there. He used to send them out about weekly, but now it's sporadically. He wrote a terrific little book called Ad Scam, and it was from all of his research around the world of just very much of what you're talking about there. And he claims an ad scam and then backs it up that only $3 out of every $100 you spend in digital marketing and Google and Facebook actually reaches an audience of interest for you. $3 out of 100. I mean, that's amazing. Do you think that? Do you believe that?
Let's see. I think if it's rephrased, I probably agree with it, which is that I would say it would not surprise me to find that $3 out of every 100 adds marginal new customers and new revenue that you otherwise wouldn't have received anyway. One of my favorite examples of this, Park, which I'm sure you've seen tons of times, right, is you search for a brand in Google. You go to Google and you search for, I don't know, True Value Hardware. And Google says to True Value Hardware, essentially like, oh, that's a nice brand you got there. It would be a shame if one of your competitors were to be ranking above you. You don't want that to happen, right? You better pay us some protection money. And that I'm born in New Jersey, so
that was one of the best mobsters I've heard in 9 years. Nice work.
There is no mobster who has ever extorted on the scale that Google extorts with brand advertising. Right? They essentially say someone comes to Google and searches for your brand. What they want is to go to your website. It's very obvious. 99 times out of 100, they just want to go to your website and they search Google to make sure that they get to the right web address. And Google essentially is charging the equivalent of mafia protection money to make sure that you have to pay for your own brand to be at the top of the search results. Otherwise, they'll put Lowe's and Home Depot and 5 other home improvement stores above True Value. And True Value, someone will have to scroll down to find True Value in the results for a True Value search. And I think that's dark and evil. I think that anybody with the soul and ethics would say, no, you're not allowed to bid on your competitors' brands, or, we're going to put, you can bid all you want, but we're always going to put the canonical website that we know people are going to. We're always going to put that at the top. I think that would be a very reasonable and ethical thing to do. If I were a government entity, I would require that, right? I would basically say, hey, Google, you're a monopoly. You own the internet. Guess what? You need to put, when people are searching for something and you absolutely know that 99 out of 100 wouldn't go in there, you got to put that at the top. I wish the EU would do that with GDPR and stuff like that. Anyway, that aside, those dollars that True Value is spending to be at the top of the results for their own brand search, which many of you listeners are almost certainly paying Google to do as well, that's adding no marginal value to your business. You're paying that extortion money to Google simply to get customers you were already going to get. In Facebook is quite similar with a lot of their advertising practices, showing ads in places where they know people were going to already show up before they purchased your brand.
Yeah. Now, will search get replaced by ChatGPT and OpenAI? And the reason why I asked that is I was called last week about a speaking training gig out on the East Coast and did not know this customer at all. And I asked them, how did you find me? It's usually website, SEO. And this was the first time they actually said ChatGPT.
Oh, yeah.
We asked them who are the top 3 storytellers in this, and they were very specific of what they're looking for. And I was happy to hear that I showed up, and I was curious then, does that all of a sudden start becoming a thing and totally erodes Google's search market?
I think it will take a small chunk of market share over the next 5 to 10 years. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it will probably take it in some sectors and spaces, but not others. And so it's, again, this is one of the things that that we believe is really important to help people with is you need to know whether your audience is using these tools more or less than average, or they're using them more or less than Google. For right now, we just looked at the data with our clickstream data provider, Datos, was that March of this year? And Google is still 373 times larger than ChatGPT is in terms of search volume. So Yeah. I mean, for every 374 people that come to you, one of them is going to come from ChatGPT, right?
Right. Right.
But that could be different in your sector, right? It might be 1 out of 100 or even 1 out of 50. And next year it could be 1 out of 25, depending on your sector.
Yeah.
I looked at this recently for folks who are in retirement communities, for example. And Park, in retirement communities, AOL is still much, much more popular than ChatGPT. It's often people's homepage, right? Like if I go to my grandpa's retirement community, a lot of people that, have a computer there, like their homepage is still AOL. And because that's what they got comfortable with, 20 years ago. And the AOL keeps marketing to them and serving them and, providing software for those kinds of people. So you got to know your audience rather than looking at some, the homepage of Tech Meme or Hacker News and being like, oh, ChatGPT is going to take over Google. Slow your roll. Like, make sure your audience is in that audience. I think this is one of the frustrations of any hype cycle. Like 5 years ago, we would have been chatting about, gosh, is Web3 and sort of the world of crypto, is that going to take over Google? And 10 years ago, we might have been chatting about whether, Baidu was going to take over Google. And
yeah. Well, and so far we've been talking pretty much about being found online, advertising, digital marketing, and SEO. But SparkToro, correct me if I'm wrong, is about finding your audience online, using online to figure out where your audience is so you know how to directly target your storytelling to them.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly
right. Is that fair enough?
Yeah, so the whole value proposition is essentially, who is my audience and where are they and what are they doing? So, you go to SparkToro and you might say something like, yeah, my audience is, landscapers in Arizona, or my audience is interior designers in California, or I'm trying to reach heads of commercial real estate nationwide who are helping people, helping businesses choose which real estate properties to invest in. And SparkToro can tell you about all those different audiences and their demographics and behaviors, gender, age, geographic distribution, job roles, titles, how much money they make on average, what words they use in their profiles, and then which websites they visit more or less than average, what social networks are they on, what search tools and AI tools are they using and how much, all those kinds of things.
And you can get that purely by scraping the web.
No,
what people
not
are
entirely.
happening? Okay,
not entirely. So we have sort of 4 core data sources. 2 of those are pretty directly scraping the web, right? So we crawl, for example, is Business of Story on YouTube?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
So I'm sure you're in our index, right? And so we crawl YouTube, and I think we have 2.5, 3 million channels from YouTube, maybe more. We also crawl Spotify, we crawl Apple Podcasts, and we build a big index of YouTube channels and podcasts. We also crawl the web, and we build a big index of websites, and then we try and connect up which websites are connected to which podcasts and which YouTube channels. We buy data for LinkedIn, public LinkedIn profiles. We get that from LeadFuse, which great company. We buy email data from Hunter.io. We buy Google search data. We could crawl it ourselves, but there's a great company called Market Muse that we buy some Google data from. So essentially all the sites that rank for hundreds of millions of keywords in Google and which sites and all that. And then I think our secret sauce, although it's not secret, I talk about it all the time, is a clickstream data provider. So clickstream, if you're not familiar, Park, is basically, we buy from Datos, but SimilarWeb is a popular one, ComScore, Nielsen. You remember the old Nielsen TV families from like the 1950s?
Well, my agency, Park & Co., started in 95, and we were very much of a traditional agency. And so, yes, we relied on Nielsen heavily.
Yeah. So Nielsen has a division called Net Ratings, and they use clickstream data as well, collect clickstream data as well. And essentially what clickstream is for the internet is what Nielsen, set-top boxes were in the 1950s. So it's essentially people who've opted in and said, like, you can anonymously aggregate my data, and in exchange, sometimes they get like, I don't know, free HBO, or they get some sort of promotion of some kind, a payment, I don't know what. And on all their devices, right, mobile and desktop, they are able to see every URL that their panelists visit in what order. So, we know that you went to Facebook and then you browsed Rand's page and then you went over to Business of Stories YouTube channel and you clicked on the episode that he was on, and then you went to SparkToro and then you tried the free version of SparkToro. Like, they can see that whole click stream for 10 million plus devices. And with that data, we're able to build, essentially we connect that up with the LinkedIn profile data and the crawled data. And through math and code, we are able to build this model of people who have these attributes, visit these websites, listen to these podcasts, have these words and phrases in their bio or in these geographies. And that's essentially how SparkToro works. There's nothing secret about it or magical. It's just connecting data sources and making them, presenting them logically.
So once they get to SparkToro, then is that potential lead now not anonymous? That you've been able to cobble everything together? The stream is, and it goes to LinkedIn, and you say, oh, well, that's Park Howell's LinkedIn page. We know this stream is Park Howell.
Yeah, so I guess technically on the back end, we would be able to see a bunch of public LinkedIn profiles that we've matched up for a given thing, but we don't expose any of that. And I guess technically that's public data, right? Like if your LinkedIn if your LinkedIn profile is private, we can't see it. We'll never know. But if your LinkedIn profile, which most are public, if Google can see it and you search, Park Howell on Google and your LinkedIn profile comes up, that's essentially exactly the same data that SparkToro has. So it's all public stuff, which is really good for us because we don't have to worry about personally identifiable information or, violating EU GDPR laws or California privacy laws or Canada's privacy laws, because we're essentially doing only what Google does, only ever displaying publicly available information.
Gotcha. Okay. So in a very self-serving move on my part, can we walk through how it works using our new Story Cycle Genie? We are just launching this AI tool, and we have 3 specific audiences that we want to be talking to. And, of course, without SparkToro, I'm sitting here going, all right, so how do I find these people? I think I know where they are. I'm going to go to my local, my core market, but then I need to grow from there. But, I'm going to do a lot of guessing. So say, for instance, our number one audience, and it's a very big group, it's SMB, small to medium-sized businesses, typically doing under 10 million, because I learned that 95% of North American companies do 10 million or less in revenue. Yeah. And so we want to democratize, like you have. We want to democratize branding and make it very accessible that they can do it immediately. So how do I find in that gigantic market of SMBs the ideal customer for me to talk to for this launch using SparkToro?
Yeah, great question. So before you use SparkToro, Park, my recommendation would be to choose a smaller, tighter niche audience. I think, unfortunately, too many business owners get this idea, probably from venture capital world, that they're supposed to target a giant audience. And that's a terrible, terrible idea. Unless you need to be $1 billion company and you've raised tens of millions of dollars and, you've got to grow fast enough, I would strongly, strongly urge you to pick one particular niche. For example, if you told me that, hey, we're going to serve CEOs and founders of small businesses that are running e-commerce companies in the United States. Okay, perfect. Now we're targeting a particular niche. And you know what the great part about that is? E-commerce founders have very different interests, very specific interests and needs versus other kinds of founders. And so you can create content, reports, videos. You can interview people from that world that will attract the right audience, as opposed to all SMBs, which, how are you going to get the HVAC operator in Texas to care about the same thing that the e-commerce founder in Seattle cares about? They have almost no interest overlap. And so,
other than my AC went out and I need the HVAC guy to come and fix it.
Yeah, but the HVAC guy probably doesn't need that because he can fix it himself, right?
Exactly.
I say he only because I looked at HVAC business owners recently, and I think it's 90+% are male
Yeah.
in our data set. So,
Yeah.
so
That doesn't
statistically
surprise me.
speaking, yeah, that's who it is. But, I think this is once you've identified those sub markets, and you might say, hey, Rand, I want to go after 5 different ones. That's great too, right? You could say, hey, I'm going
But you want to
after...
really focus on each individual niche working with your tool.
Exactly, right? Because then you can go to SparkToro and you can describe that one specific audience. So for example, can I share my screen here? I think I can.
Yeah, but we're on audio. They're not
we're
actually
on
going to
audio.
see the video.
Okay.
So, but we'll bring it to life through our words. How about that?
All right, sounds good. Yeah. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to SparkToro and I'm going to search for profile contains e-commerce founder in the United States.
And hey, if you're listening along and you got a laptop or something right there, go on the web and pull up SparkToro and just do what Rand's doing, and let's see what happens.
Exactly. It's easy as pie. So here we go. SparkToro has data on approximately 10,000 accounts that contain the words e-commerce founder in their profile. That could be in their job title or role or their job description, on sites like LinkedIn, but potentially also Twitter or Instagram, places like that. So then SparkToro is showing me a breakdown of gender, a little nice pie chart here. So it's not surprising, a little 72% male, 26% women, female, and 1% non-binary or other. And then we're looking at the social networks that they're on. And in order from most to least popular, it's YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, LinkedIn, TikTok. That is not that far off of the average US web user. So e-commerce founders are not massively different in terms of their social network use. But now I'm going to scroll down to search and AI tools. Which search and AI tools do they use in what order? And it goes Google, Bing, Wikipedia, Amazon, Reddit, ChatGPT. ChatGPT is the number 6 most popular platform, search and AI tool platform, and it is used 121% more than the average American by e-commerce founders.
This particular group.
This particular group. So it probably really does pay in the world where you're targeting e-commerce founders to be visible and well-known, right, in tools like ChatGPT. It also shows me that Claude and Perplexity are number 11 and 12, and those are both, plus 63%, plus 57%. So those are popular as well.
Well, which not a surprise given their founders, they're startup thinking people, and they're in the e-commerce world,
right?
So they're going to be more up to date.
Yeah. And then you can see, websites that they visit. So for example, woocommerce.com has a very high affinity, retaildive.com, Digital Commerce 360, eConsultancy. These are places that you could pitch, that you could advertise with, that you could, your PR person could reach out and say, hey, you should have Park on eConsultancy's, whatever podcast or YouTube channel, or, hey, he could write a piece for you about storytelling for e-commerce founders. That could be a phenomenal win for reaching that specific audience. And this is what SparkToro is designed to do, right? Show you these opportunities in podcasts and YouTube channels and websites. And it also tells you topics that people are interested in. So one topic that's quite interesting is effective branding. There's a lot of interest in effective branding, affinity of 94. Digital marketing strategies is high. Using SEO for online growth is high. Sales trends in e-commerce is of deep interest. And so if you were able to sort of, show the trends of what products are rising and falling, what people are buying and stopping buying online, maybe how things like tariffs are affecting e-commerce trends, that could be really interesting for this audience.
Yeah. And then does SparkToro provide insights on now what to do with this information? You've got this, and what's the next step? What do I do with this? Okay, great. Rand, you've given me all this great stuff. Now what do I do?
It's funny you should ask. My co-founder and I were just on a call yesterday, and we were chatting about this, and the answer is mostly no. We give you the data and then leave you free to decide what this means and what you should do with it.
Gotcha.
Because the answer is really different for every different person. Like, some people should go pitch podcasts and try to be a guest on those places. Some people should go pay Google to be advertisers on the right YouTube channels. Some people should look at the topics and keywords and make content. Some people should go to the bios that are, the bio keywords that show up on LinkedIn and buy LinkedIn ads to appear for those. The answer is different for every different person, but
yeah,
we have started to see our customers do something quite interesting, which, speaking of the AI topic, they basically are exporting SparkToro's data. So just taking a giant export of all the data that the audience research report provides about a given audience. Then they upload it to ChatGPT or Claude. Claude tends to be quite popular with our customers in particular. And then they ask Claude or ChatGPT, hey, what recommendations do you have for me? And, I am doing this. I'm trying to reach these people. My, marketing channels are these ones. Based on this audience data, what can I do? Tell me about social media posts that I should put up. Tell me blog posts I should write. Tell me research that I should consider. Tell me what the topic of our next webinar should be. All those kinds of things. Tell me what our landing page testing, headlines should be. And these AI tools give pretty crappy answers to that if you don't give them any data, right? If you just say like, hey, tell me what to do, you get very, very generic responses. But if you give the AI tool a lot of data, a lot of information about an audience, their answers get pretty good. I'll be honest, I was quite skeptical about this. I thought this was, I don't know, a little pseudoscience-y, right? Like I've always believed that AI is a little bit spicy autocomplete. It's just words that come after other words frequently on the internet. But Park, when I played with the results and I watched some of our customers do this, even my skeptical brain was impressed. And so now Casey and I are thinking about whether we're going to put this right into the product and give these recommendations inside the tool.
Well, I had that same trepidation about a year and a half ago when we started building our Story Cycle Genie, thinking, could it really do that good of job working based on my IP of the Story Cycle system that is very effective? It's just takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
Well, now you can boil that down in about 10 minutes and get all the same output. And I have been blown away by what it's done. And I ran SparkToro through it. Sent you, and I'll resend you that doc. And so as you were talking, I was just looking through the OO exercise, we call it, and that stands for Organization, Offering, and Outcomes, and it gives you 9 one-word brand descriptors, kind of personality traits.
Okay.
And for your organization, it came up with, from just simply reviewing your website, basically, transparent, rebellious, and authentic. And the rebellious I want to read to you, which I love. This descriptor captures SparkToro's stance against the Google, Facebook duopoly and its mission to help marketers find alternatives. The company positions itself as challenging the status quo of digital marketing and offering a different path. Is that accurate?
I think that's unfortunately extremely accurate.
Unfortunately, but yeah.
It's interesting. Here's what I think is great about it. Rebellious is not a word that we've used to self-describe. However, the reasoning models, the reasoning models, right? The new this is using the new O3 from ChatGPT.
We are using Claude, and you'd have to ask Sean Schroeder on that because he's doing all the prompt engineering for us.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure who he's pulling that from.
Yeah. So Claude, I think this is why a lot of our customers like Claude as well, is because it has a reasoning model. And so essentially, rather than just looking for words that frequently come after other words, it also tries to build associative language. And so it sees SparkToro frequently being talked about as challenging status quo, as fighting back against the duopoly, as giving data to people that Google and Facebook want to keep secret. And then it is building that word association to rebellious. I actually kind of like that word, right?
Well, you are rebellious. Maybe you're flinching from it a little bit. I don't know, but I think it is what you do.
Who do you cheer for in Star Wars? It's not the Empire.
Yeah.
It's the
exactly
rebellion.
Right. Well, then let me bounce off what it came up with, your 3 character traits for your offering, what people experience while working with SparkToro. Came up with illuminating, accessible, and comprehensive. And for illuminating, for instance, it says the platform literally illuminates hidden audience behaviors and preferences that were previously in the dark. It brings clarity to the murky world of audience research.
I like that description a lot, except I would say we do that figuratively, not literally.
Yeah.
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 Well, that's the beauty of it too. With the story cycle is as it comes out with the genie, then you can iterate on anything immediately in it. And it says, "Oh, I hear you, Rand. Okay, then how does this work for you? Yeah, good." And then once you've done all your iteration, have that flexibility, then it creates that foundational brand narrative that you can use, of course, for all your marketing. And now the third category is outcomes. Okay. So the final three descriptors are confidence, precision, and freedom. Yeah. Which one would you like me to read? Confidence, precision, or freedom?
I'm curious about the freedom one. Yeah, what does that? Tell me more there.
It says the platform liberates marketers from over-reliance on Google and Facebook, giving them the freedom to explore alternative channels and approaches.
I love that. Yeah, I think it's a word I haven't previously associated with our brand, but could be interesting to. I wonder if it will resonate with our audience. But I think this is the beauty of, right? You get these suggestions, and then
What we found with it, Rand, when people go through it, three major things happen to them. And this was kind of my learning too with the genie. Number one, it validates what you're already doing well. Right. It's like, yep, nailed it. Yep. So that means you are communicating it well on your website.
Yeah.
It highlights the gaps and the missed opportunities. And you're like, well, it didn't say anything about this and that. And I go, well, because that's not showing up in your marketing. So you might want to highlight that and do something about it. And then third, it gives you inspiration, different ways like freedom to think about your company and talk about it.
Yeah. So, very interesting.
And it even created a unique value proposition. Do you have a UVP right now?
We have a sort of strategic North Star, right? Essentially, who are we for and what do we do for them?
We call that a purpose statement, and it wrote one for you as well, and maybe it pulled yours, but I'll read both of them to you. The UVP it came up with after scanning everything: discover where your audience truly pays attention.
That's very close to what we say on our homepage. Yep.
So it may well have pulled that. And then it goes, let's jump down to the purpose statement here and just see how this lands with you. Spark Toro exists to help people do better marketing by illuminating the authentic sources of influence that shape any audience's opinions and behaviors.
That is also almost literally taken from our mission, our core mission statement.
Good. Yeah. So that means you're doing a good job of communicating that. If it's coming through in this, a lot of times I'll read the purpose statement, the UVP to a company, and they'll go, "Oh my God, that's brilliant!" And I'll say, where did it pull that from? He goes, "We've never said that before, ever." Yeah. But it's the reasoning brought it together, right?
Yeah. So I think two things are probably true. One is some of it is the reasoning model, but a lot of it is essentially it looks across the web or across its corpus of data, which comes from the web. It comes from, digitally indexed books, all those kinds of things, and looks for mentions of the brand, and then looks at the words and phrases that appear around it in paragraphs and sentences and documents across the web. Mm-hmm. And then it tries to assemble all those words and phrases and look for the ones that appear most frequently statistically, and then find the words and phrases through synonyms and knowledge graph matching to build a singular association. And very frequently, you know what it's great at? It's great at summing up. So if there's 50,000 documents on the web with mentions of your brand and what they do, and everyone's used their own words to describe you. Every podcast host describes you a little differently. Every time you've ever been mentioned in a social media post, someone says something a little different. What any of these AI tools are great at is summarizing the average of what people say about you. And that that generally comes out. I will say this though, Park, one thing you have to be careful with is with all the AI tools is it is overly positive about you. So it tends to, it does not, if, for example, let's say you're Tesla or something and people are saying terrible things about you all day, every day, and sort of, a lot of your media coverage is very negative. The AI models are trained not to show that unless specifically asked about it. So through the training, fine tuning process, which is a lot of human labor, AI models have been trained to show more positive stuff because people who use AI tools like that.
That's interesting. Yeah. And I guess I've seen that too, because everything coming through on our reports are, very positive.
Very positive.
I would imagine we can just use the genie and say, okay, now tell me what are the hardcore. We actually have a tool, a story grading tool in it that is for free, that you can put your website in and then put 3 of your competitors' websites in it, and it'll come back and it will grade you on a 14-point scale on how well you are communicating and where your major problems are compared to your competition. So it does look at that negative side, but I think you're right. I've seen it. It's very positive. It's very enabling. It's very, my emotional promise for it is enthralling, because I've seen people use it and going, oh my God, this is like magic. And they do hear the good things about their brand in the process,
Yep, absolutely. Yep. And I think it just really pays. And I want so much for people to understand how AI tools work. Just like when I was, in the SEO world, I wanted people to understand how Google worked. I think that understanding, unfortunately, is still really lacking. And
well, it's so new.
Yeah,
we're pioneers in it.
Yeah, it's frustrating, but I think we all get so much better at using these tools intelligently when we understand what they're doing and what they're not doing.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. But it sounds like SparkToro will be a beautiful product for us to be able to run the genie, through your stuff, so we could really understand our market, take those findings, and then put it into our genie and say, okay, now you know everything about us. And the genie, by the way, will call out 3 primary audiences. Yours, it came up with number 1, digital marketing agencies as being your number 1. I don't know if that is or not, but that's what it came up with. Number 2, content marketers and SEO specialists. And number 3, founders and product marketers.
Yeah, I would say those are our 3 audiences. The SEO people, probably not so much, but content marketers for sure, social media marketers, PRs is one of our big ones.
So then you would go in and tweak that, take SEO out and put something else in.
Totally. Agencies and consultants.
Yeah.
That's probably 40% of our audience.
And then it identified the 4 emotional drivers that you should consider as a brand to use to connect with these audiences, and in 4 categories, really: challenges, frustrations, fears, and aspirations. So again, I'm assuming you could take this insight that SparkToro would give us, and we say, okay, here's where they are. Now create us a content campaign, and let's say digital marketing agencies. It listed 4 challenges for you: proving value to clients with concrete data, differentiating services in a crowded market, staying ahead of rapidly changing digital landscape, and balancing multiple client needs with limited resources. Is that what you're solving for them?
Those are definitely some of the sub challenges. I think at the very top for us sits make me look good to my boss, team, or client.
Yeah, then you would put that in there and say, okay, this is great, but at the very, priority number 1 is make me look good.
Yeah, make me look
good. Then in
good.
frustrations, it said reliance on incomplete or outdated audience data.
Right.
Time wasted on ineffective outreach and campaigns. Difficulty finding genuine influencers and publications, and limited visibility into audience behaviors across platforms.
Yeah. A couple of those are kind of saying the same thing, but I think that's absolutely correct, right? Like,
okay.
Yeah, this is the core thing. So what's great is, you can, I think, take this sort of AI powered genie, and then if you give it audience data, my assumption would be it can get even better, right? And potentially more detailed.
You guys know about the audience. We know about your brand. You put those 2 together, say, okay, now brand story, speak to this particular audience, and here's where they are. Here, create a marketing plan based on what SparkToro is telling you.
Yeah. I
that sounds beautiful. I can't wait to do that.
Yeah,
I can't wait to try it.
Sounds fun.
Well, I really appreciate it, Rand. Any last thoughts for our audience of even when you get this data in and you got to humanize it? This is, I guess, was my main question to wrap this thing up: is how do you bring your own humanity to it to really understand how to connect with these people?
Yeah, I mean, I think, in my opinion, it is very important not to take the output from any AI tool or even SparkToro and put it directly into your brand messaging, make it directly and exactly the content that you push and promote. Look, we still live in a human world, and you can see time and time again, if you look at the posts that you forward to your friends, if you look at the things that you chat to each other on WhatsApp or text messaging, if you take a look at what is getting shared on any platform, LinkedIn or Reddit or YouTube or Facebook, it's not created by AI. It's still real people writing or blogging or talking or videoing themselves. It's still real people, despite all the advancements that AI has made and how close it seems to real human beings. I think it's a trap. It is a dangerous trap to think that the output an AI gives you is good enough to use untouched in your marketing materials, your brand, your headlines, your blog posts. That's danger.
Yeah.
And be yourself. Be weird and different. Be your strange, inimitable self.
That's a great word. Yeah.
Yeah. Make mistakes, right?
Yeah.
Be willing to say things that no one has said before. That novelty is something AI will never be able to do. It can only reason and build off of things that have been done and said before. So find some novelty, be an artist, be creative. That's how you stand out from a bunch of, unfortunately, marketers and founders who are just going to copy and paste.
Yeah. Well, Mark Schaefer came out with his book Audacious a couple months ago, and I don't know if you've read that, but what a brilliant answer to AI.
Look at
there
this.
It is.
I got a copy right here.
Yeah.
I'm holding it up for those of you who are listening. I did a review of it on LinkedIn, actually. I found Mark to be such a lovely soul. My goodness.
Oh, he's fantastic.
Yeah.
And he was on the show a couple months ago, and I read through his book and I said, yep, that's right. And it's pulling crazy stunts. It's being silly. It's being uniquely human. A couple weeks after that, to my horror, I posted a show graphic with a major typo in it. And one of my buddies, hit me, punched me in the nose basically, and said, "Dude, you completely misspelled this word." And I looked at it, I'd got inverted some letters. And, Rand, I was embarrassed at first. And then I thought, nope, I'm just human. I screwed it up. Oh, well, they know it came from Park and not some AI.
Yeah. And I mean, there's beauty in that. I think it's absolutely okay. I'd much rather find people and brands that occasionally make mistakes but are real humans versus a brand that uses AI to write all their content and copy. That doesn't nobody's reading those books either. There's a lot of you go to Amazon, you search, you're going to find a lot of created by AI. Ugh.
Yeah, who cares? But it can do a lot of important work for us, like understanding our audience.
Sure,
but then it's
absolutely.
up to us to bring our own unique voice.
Yeah.
To
If
that
what
message.
you're looking for is an aggregation of collected intelligence, collected language, AI is perfect. That's exactly what you're looking for. Like, hey, assemble what everything everyone's ever said about me and my brand, and then tell me things about that data. That's what AI is doing. And it's so useful for exactly that purpose. So I think that's a great use case.
It's really the ultimate word processor, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, if you think about what 10 years ago, 15 years ago, probably 15 years ago, Google came out with auto suggest. Do you remember? You started typing in Google and it would predict what thing you were searching for. And I remember being, in a hotel on the Amalfi Coast, and I started typing into my laptop, and because of the IP address, it knew where I was coming from. I started typing and it predicted the name of a local restaurant that I never would have been able to spell myself. And I thought, gosh, how did it know to predict? How did it know I was searching for that restaurant? Oh, because people like me, Americans who are traveling on the Amalfi Coast and staying at this hotel in this town, often search for that restaurant after visiting these websites. There you go. What else is ChatGPT doing? It's predictive intelligence based on previous behaviors. And if that's what you're looking to aggregate, fantastic. And if you need to be novel and you need to stand out and you need to be creative and human, your brain is better than 1,000 AI prompts.
I love it. Well, thanks. Where can people find out more about you? And SparkToro is just SparkToro.com, right?
Yeah, that's right. SparkToro. And my other company, we didn't talk about it, but Snack Bar Studio, if folks are interested in video
games. That's a
game.
gaming company, right?
Yeah.
Building
we're making
games?
an indie video game. That's snackbarstudio.com. And I am most active on LinkedIn, where I'm Rand Fishkin, and on Blue Sky, where I'm Rand Fish.
Great. Rand, thank you so much. It's always great to speak to a fellow Seattleite, even though I've been in Arizona longer than I lived in Seattle, but still love it up there. Thanks for being with us.
My pleasure, Park. Take care.
Thanks for listening to my conversation with Rand. And if you liked what you heard, then please share it with your world. And if you wouldn't mind jumping over to iTunes and giving us a rating and review, well, we'd appreciate that too. And we are about to launch the Story Cycle Genie. So if you have not signed up for the launch and gotten all the bonuses associated with simply signing up, then check it out at businessofstory.com/Story Cycle Genie. You are going to love this because it will help you craft a lucrative brand story in minutes, not months, at the fraction of the cost of the old traditional way of branding. Plus, you can create content immediately based on your new defined, refined brand story. So check it out over at businessofstory.com/Story Cycle-Genie. Now join us next Monday when Story Finder Extraordinaire Aaron Calfado will show you how to spot and capture your stories in the wild so you can build an amazing library of stories you can use to boost your sales and marketing. That's next Monday. I hope to see you there. And until then, remember that the most potent story you'll ever tell is the story you tell yourself. So make that one a great one. Thanks so much for listening.